What is up? It is the Bulletin Board Sports Podcast with Pat, Christian, and Mike. And we could not be more excited for this episode because we have finally made it through the desert of baseball season and NBA offseason, dealing with all of it, getting every last scrap of NFL training camp news that we could. And we have finally made it to week one. It is all paid off because we are going to have a full slate of games this weekend to enjoy. Most
It feels
importantly
good.
of all,
It feels like nature's healed.
Oh yeah, exactly. We're back in our element, 100%. Because I missed football season like crazy. It's the week after the Super Bowl, I was immediately like, I need professional football back. And college football, we could talk a little bit about some of the stars of the past week in college football at some point during the podcast too, but that was a nice little appetizer for the season as well.
Oh yeah.
But I guess to kick it off, we should talk about why we originally set this time slot for our podcast, and that is our instant reaction to Hard Knocks with the Chicago Bears, the season finale episode. And I think they did spice it up as much as possible in this episode. I know there was a lot of complaints about not having any swearing, and it felt like toothless at some level. But this week, they had the cuts. They had some really difficult moments for Ryan Poles and that staff. They had, you had in-depth player breakdowns of who was getting cut, who they wanted to keep, position groups. They had footage of Caleb with the all-22 tape, just lasers all over the field. That was definitely enticing to see for a Bears fan excited for this Sunday. But I don't know. It was all in all, I had a lot of good things to say about this episode of Hard Knocks compared to the rest of them. I think there was more action, was my number one reaction. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the last episode. It's the saddest episode. All the players get cut. That's the toughest thing to watch. And you saw Poles really get emotional at the end with Adrian Colbert. I thought it was interesting to see him as a former player who's been in that situation really not break down, but get real sad or emotional with it. But ultimately, I'm really excited about what we have going on. I cannot wait for Sunday. It's going to be a big test, and it's going to dictate, I think, the course of our season. A lot of talent on this team. I mean, all the talent is put on screen when you see Hard Knocks. I'm just super excited about it. And yeah, I mean, no surprise roster cuts, no guys who were supposed to be big time players got cut this season. So I'm just looking forward to everyone being relatively healthy and ready to go for sure.
And I thought the whole storyline of Poles getting cut by the Bears himself as an undrafted free agent. I mean, that was really cool. I mean, you don't really see GMs in that position at all, and not any of the Hard Knocks that we've seen. I mean, they're all not many of them have been former players. I thought that was a really cool perspective and something that definitely, just like you said, Christian, with Adrian Colbert, made the cuts that they had to make, a lot harder, and you could feel it in the rooms of those conversations.
You don't normally see a GM have a villain origin story in the same way that Ryan Poles does, getting so close to the league and then getting cut and now clawing his way back to the top as a top decision maker. And at this point, a guy who had all the cards in his hand this past offseason and could be in a similar position this next offseason with 3 high-end picks, their own first rounder, the Panthers second rounder, the Bears second rounder. There are going to be a lot of moves left for Ryan Poles to make, particularly, hopefully, in the trenches. But we shall see. I think they've got the quarterback position solidified for right now. We saw him on the sideline for that Georgia-Clemson game. And he said to Joe Shane, who probably wanted to run for the hills as soon as he saw the Hard Knocks cameras after the offseason edition with the Giants ended so terribly, just was a disaster for them throughout, specifically for that front office. But no, I think that Ryan Poles should be happy with where the roster's at. He's going to have a lot of flexibility going forward. So I think we're in a pretty good spot as Bears fans, and it all could go south. We don't know. That this Titans team on week 1 is a weird matchup because, like I said, it feels like a team outside of the quarterback that is built to go to the playoffs. And the quarterback's a big question mark. We saw Will Levis at his worst last year, and we also saw him lead a 2-touchdown comeback against a playoff team in the Dolphins. So development isn't linear. He has all the tools to be a great quarterback, but the Bears may have the next great quarterback, elite quarterback in the league in Caleb Williams. So it's going to be a marquee matchup for sure, if it is only at noon on Sunday, opening 1.
Is that where we want to start? Are we going both feet in right now?
Well, I still had a couple things to mention about specifically about the Bears. We can run through pretty quickly, run through some of my thoughts on Hard Knocks. One thing I wanted to say right off the bat, we have gotten in each episode a few moments at a time of Caleb and Flus one-on-one in the Flus's office. And every single time, I want Caleb and Flus to have the best relationship. I want this to go off without a hitch. Ideally, Matt Eberflus is a Chicago hero for years to come. But when you watch them in the office together, Caleb looks disinterested. He looks somewhat uncertain about Flus as a coach. I feel like Caleb is always sizing Flus up in these episodes and kind of assessing him, not really giving him a 100% affirmation and kind of how wacky Flus can be. Caleb can sometimes just kind of look at him and really give him nothing to where Flus has to be like, okay, are we good? Because I think it's a unique situation for Flus to be in. He is a guy that's more or less on the warm seat, as I will say. I don't think he's on the hot seat. I think that, once again, Poles would keep him there if he could. But he would be on the warm seat. And I think that Caleb has way more power in this organization than Flus does, certainly more staying power. So Caleb is there for the long haul. Flus is the one that's really being tested in the short term, in the immediate. So realistically, every time that Caleb and Flus speak, it's somewhat of an audition for Flus to prove himself as a head coach to Caleb. I thought seeing their dynamic in Hard Knocks, watching Caleb seem not particularly detached, but somewhat disinterested in Flus's way of putting it, it's something to watch. I think if Caleb wants his pick of a head coach, eventually he's going to get it if that's not Flus.
Well, yeah, I'm certain we don't have to worry about that at all. I mean, for me, they're two completely separate things. I mean, Eberflus is focused on the defense, and then he gives a lot of trust to Waldron, and he's going to have to give a lot of trust to Caleb. And Caleb is who we think he is. So I don't have any questions about him feeling a certain type of way towards our coach. All he has to do is produce on offense, and then all Eberflus has to do is produce a good, talented defense, which he has all the talent in the world to get it done. I'm not really concerned about the personal gestures. So personally, it doesn't bother me for real. I think we're kind of looking too far into it. Let's see Sunday.
Okay. I could be reading into it too much. I just want to say quickly, I think Flus and Caleb are both different cats in their own ways. Yeah. They're not the particular normal guy that you would just meet on the street. I think they're both very unique in their personalities. And I think at the end of the day, to your point, it will matter more Caleb's relationship with Waldron than it will his direct relationship with Eberflus, so long as Eberflus is pulling his weight, calling that defense, and that defense is humming as we expect it to be. The standard's going to be high for Eberflus this year, just strictly based on his defensive play calling to lead this team where we think it can go. And it's going to have to be led by the defense. Even with all of these weapons, there's going to be so much a rookie quarterback is going to be asked to do, no matter what he's capable of. They're going to be leaning on the run. So it's going to depend on what many believe to be a great defense to hold it down. We can go more into this as we talk about Bears versus Titans. But all in all, it is to say I'm probably going a little too hard on Flus here. and we should be assessing Caleb and Waldron's relationship. And by all accounts, they seem fine.
Did
What
you
did you
see
were you
anything?
guys?
Did you see anything with Waldron?
I saw nothing with Waldron. Have we
I
seen
didn't
any?
either.
Maybe I can go into this now. Have we seen anything with Waldron? I feel like you've got a league of maybe the more animated coordinators are on the defensive side, but I feel like there's a league of young, hotshot offensive coordinators from the McVay tree or from the Shanahan tree. Waldron just seems like a guy who could be an accountant down the street that you run into at the grocery store. He does not seem like some kind of larger-than-life presence. Seems like a smart guy by all accounts. I think was coveted as a possible head coaching candidate a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
we'll see. He could put himself in that situation again
Mike.
with a big year from Caleb. Go ahead, Mike.
I think one of the big things behind Waldron is just the kind of I mean, it's not like they were firing on all. He had good wide receivers in Seattle, and it didn't. He was good. They made some noise, but I mean, they never got to anywhere near where Pete Carroll had been before. With someone other than Geno Smith being Russell Wilson and different weapons. But I mean, I think that kind of tampers down. I mean, Waldron, he was a good coordinator. I wasn't surprised to not see him be like a main feature within it, but it would have been kind of a interesting storyline. But what do you guys think of one of the most surprising ones for me is them actually giving Velus Jones the vote of confidence to at least stay on the roster, even if he's gonna be a gadget player on the kickoff role. I thought he was gonna be. I didn't think he was going to be making the roster, but I guess he does have a spot after all.
He sounds like he's going to have a much bigger role than just being a gadget, based on the way Poles was talking about him, the way Chad Morton, the running backs coach, was talking about him. The special teams coordinator was raving about how he can do everything on special teams.
Yeah.
I think they're going to look for every reason to just keep using this guy.
Keep him on the roster.
They kept hyping him up as a running back, talking about his explosiveness. There's something to that, to where not every running back is going to have 4.3 speed in the way that Velus does, but he still has some concerns when you talk about running too high. The ball security concerns are always going to be an issue. He wasn't great catching the ball as a wide receiver, so how is he going to be catching the ball with running back routes? I don't expect him to be Christian McCaffrey in that respect. But I don't know. I think Velus Jones could very well have a big season for the Bears and end up being a feel-good Cinderella story, or very likely he could cost them in a big spot with a costly fumble or a drop pass in games that matter now. I mean, he's been playing on Bears teams that haven't had very high expectations other than just to have young guys like him produce, and every chance he's got, I could think of maybe one or two big runs or big returns that he's had, but he has more misses than hits, that's for sure.
And honestly, I think what NFL Films always does a great job is kind of protecting the players and protecting the front office and what they're saying. So hopefully that was just kind of a fluff piece for Velus, because I would be a little concerned if that was all they said about Velus in the meeting. Because he has not looked very good. But you can kind of tell with Ryan Poles, when he said he's alive.
It's his guy. It's his guy.
Yeah, they're just trying to hold on to him. I hope the best for him, but yeah, I'm not expecting, if we're having any success this year, I would expect him to really produce on special teams, maybe in a gunner role. But nothing seriously involved.
They said he was the starting gunner.
Yeah.
Which I could totally see him really producing that role. But to your point, Mike, with Shane Waldron, I've been watching a lot of preseason Seattle games as well, and they're airing the ball out. So there is a little bit of hesitancy for me when it comes to Waldron. I don't want to make it seem like he's the next young, bright coach yet before I actually see it, because what I'm seeing in Seattle right now is they're airing the football out with the same team that they had last year. And they look really good this preseason. I'm excited to see that change in philosophy in Seattle. And I'm wondering maybe they did the right thing to let go of Waldron, and maybe we have something to worry about with him as well. But we couldn't tell through Hard Knocks. I don't think we saw enough of him throughout Hard
I mean,
Knocks to really say either way.
I mean, just to put the pin on Waldron, he's not going to be reinventing the wheel. He's a Shanahan, or no, he's a McVay guy. Yeah, he was a McVay coach with the Rams for a long time. He's going to be using a lot of inside zone scheme. It's going to be a lot of play action, a lot of under center, minimal mistakes. It's going to be, probably shots off of play action, but they're not going to be airing it out in the same way that a Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb offense would, obviously, that they have in Seattle now. And you got to keep in mind, too, that Geno Smith has been throwing to Lockett and Metcalf for years now, and he's had a full year of throwing to Smith and Jigba, too. We've got to give Caleb a little bit of time and give Waldron a little bit of time to grow with this new set of weapons that he's got. I am going to give him all the time in the world, as long as it's together by week 1 and ready to go to smash the Titans. But we can keep talking about, I think my next point was going to be real quick, seeing Rome Odunze. One of the reasons I feel like the Bears could smash the Titans is seeing Rome Odunze absolutely cook a top corner in the league in Jalen Johnson in option routes multiple times. It appeared during Hard Knocks. I said earlier in the podcast a few episodes ago that Rome Odunze is going to improve based upon the competition in camp, playing against Tyreek Stevenson and Jalen Johnson alongside those the top receivers that he's with, and Moore and Allen. But then Johnson appears like he's going to be getting better too, facing this new revamped receiving core. So the skill positions on both sides are looking like strengths, which between the secondary and the wide receivers, this is a passing league. So if the Bears are set there, that's a good place to have it together. But
absolutely,
talking about a spot where go ahead. You want to talk about Rome and Jalen?
Absolutely. Rome and Jalen. Yeah, I'm excited for Rome. I think if we're going to really dominate the Titans on Sunday, it's going to have a lot to do with Rome. And that's why I'm going to say Rome. I'm going to pin it. Rome's going to score a touchdown first game, and we're going to take off from there.
Love it.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. Christian's first pin of the podcast, I believe, is a Rome touchdown on week 1. I could see it happening. I mean, L'Jarius needs a good corner, but he can't guard all three. I was saying that before. Can't guard those 3 top receivers all at once. Mike, did you have any comments on the Bears' skill positions? Or, I think you talked about earlier a couple episodes ago about just how impressed you are, considering it's the Bears. It's a team that have never seen offensive firepower like the Bears appear to have this season. And so from an outside perspective, what do you think of the Bears? We could, Christian and I could talk about how great they are all we want, but I guess it matters more what an objective perspective would think.
I mean, I thought it was just such a cool contrast to the off-season Hard Knocks for the Giants, where you guys went in, picked your guy in Caleb Williams. You weren't stuck in a position where obviously Justin Fields was gone, but I mean, you look at the Giants. I mean, they used that number 6 pick to take Malik Neighbors to try and help out a guy that they may not have 100% confidence in Daniel Jones. I mean, similarly shaky QB situation last year, but I mean, I think just there was so much positive buzz, I think, that was garnered by this entire Hard Knocks for the Bears. I mean, there's a lot of those seasons you come out of it with a lot of questions. I mean, I think this may have been one of the more optimistic Hard Knocks that we've watched in a while, and just in terms of position of the team, talent around them, and the direction that they're trying to go, and you kind of got all of that within each episode.
Exciting times. And I think the thing to be most excited about as a Bears fan right now is going to be seeing Caleb develop, not only with the young receivers like Rome Odunze, Tyler Scott, but seeing him also gel with a guy like DJ Moore, who is the only player who's under contract longer than Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze for the Bears. I believe DJ Moore is under contract for the next 6 seasons, whereas Caleb and Rome both have that 5th-year option as first-round picks. But so DJ Moore is here as the longest contracted Bear. and he talked about how he wanted to retire, or how he may be retiring as a Bear in this episode of Hard Knocks, and I thought it was just refreshing to see a guy who wants to be with the Bears for the long haul. And it wasn't like he was rinsing the Bears for money and getting them to give him some record-breaking contract. He clearly wanted to take the longer deal because he believes in what the Bears are building with Caleb and maybe with Flus. Who knows if it's going to be with another coach? I'm too quick to want to kick Flus out the door. Maybe it could all go well,
Come on, man.
And I'll turn around. I got to be optimistic after seeing this episode of Hard Knocks. I'll give Flus a chance. We'll check in on us next week. I do think
when he turns the ball over 5 times this week, come back to me.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. And if I was saying, I like that he has that we also saw that he has a bee. Was it a bee aviary or something to harvest honey from? I was like, there's a metaphor there with a defensive coordinator being able to orient his defense and swarm his defense in a way that analogizes with the bees for sure. I'm not going to be able to put it together.
You said Flus harvesting honey from bees is like how he harvests turnovers out of his Tampa 2 defense.
There we go. That's what I said. That's the better note. That's what I'm talking about. And the last thing I wanted to mention was a local guy. Shout out to a local guy, Kiran Amagaji, who was talking about the original rules of football. I think Theo Benedict, the Canadian guy, was trying to say that Canadians invented football. Some whack comment like that. I'm not sure what it was. I mean, it doesn't sound right. I haven't done the research myself. But you just see Kiran Amagaji just waiting there to cross-examine him about, what did you just say? Did you say that it was invented in Canada? No, football was invented by Walter Camp at Yale University. And it just came off as the most smug, cocky, smart-ass attitude. But I love it from my young offensive tackle. If he's going to be, the Yale guy who can tell you what's what and also put you on your butt, that's Kiran Amagaji. And he's going to be starting for the Bears very soon, whether it's at guard or tackle. And you can pin that. Love Kiran Amagaji. Love that pick for the Bears. Happy to see him practicing for sure. I mean, I could just talk about him all day. That's a guy that could be a steal. And he's from Hinsdale. He's a local guy. We grew up right
he
next
looks
to him,
like
so.
Braxton. He looks like just a little bit longer version of Braxton. So hopefully he gives us some leverage with Braxton.